Okay, today is Monday, June 18th. It's about 7:03 p.m. We'll call to order this meeting of the Brattleboro Development Review Board. This evening, I will go through the same opening remarks that I do every meeting. I know at least one person here has heard them many times, but if you have not, this is where we explain how the meeting works and what's going to happen for those of you who are not familiar with it. At the DRB, we hear applications for land development in the town of Brattleboro and appeals of zoning administrative decisions. Procedurally, the Development Review Board operates on the record. That means we take a clear record of testimony from the applicant and any interested parties and then issue a written decision with our findings. Applicants and members of the public should be aware that because we are on the record, this is your own opportunity and perhaps your only opportunity to comment on and provide evidence relating to an application. In the event our decision is appealed to the environmental court, that court will not take new testimony at its hearing, but it will look at the evidence from our hearing, the regulations or applicable law, and determine if the evidence supports the findings and decision of this board. Only interested persons that participate in this proceeding may appeal a decision made by the board, so I strongly encourage all of you to speak at this hearing. Because we're on the record, you have to swear or affirm that your testimony will be truthful. So if you think there's even a modicum of a chance you're going to speak, I'd ask that you raise your right hand and I'm going to swear you in. Ready? Do you hereby swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in the cause under consideration will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury?
I do.
Okay. Applicants require a majority vote of the full board to succeed. That means 4 votes out of 7. We don't have 7 people here tonight, but unfortunately the 4-vote threshold still holds. And when we don't have a full board in situations like tonight, we give applicants the choice of asking to continue or have an additional board member who couldn't be here listen to the recording of this hearing so that they can vote on the application. Tonight I understand that we have, who's available, Michael or Eric?
Eric Annis and Michael Kuhn will both review the video if necessary.
And they're both regulars?
Yes, they are.
Well, I'm just going to choose Eric Annis and have him be the one who's going to review video so that we can appoint an alternate and have 7 votes on an application in a more straightforward fashion. So tonight we have 6 people to vote live and we have 7 votes overall for each of the applications. It should be noted that the town of Brattleboro is a party with an interest in these applications. The town has no special status before this board. Documents provided to the board by the town planning department, town attorney, or any other town department will be considered in exactly the same way as information from the applicant or any interested parties. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes of May 21st, 2018?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
I abstain.
Any opposed? Passes 5-0-1. Mr. Bannon, has our meeting properly warned?
There was a problem. The Delta Campus hearing was not warned for Local Act 250. It was warned for site plan. I think that's a material defect that should prevent you from hearing the Local Act 250 approval today.
Okay. When the Delta applicants come up, we'll talk a little bit more about this. And if you wish to have a little congress in the hallway, you can do that, of course. My suggestion is, because I think you brought some material for us to review, and since you're here physically, that we go on the record and that you do whatever presentation we're going to do tonight. We have to notice a second hearing to do the Local Act 250 hearing. That's our mistake, not your mistake, but it still has to happen in order to comply with the law, and we're sorry for that. But in my view, we can use the evidence taken on the record here, because it relates to the same application, for that second hearing to prevent you from having to do the same redundant thing twice. In addition, the fire department raised some issues, and I think you folks are aware of them. We'll talk about this more when your application comes forward. But it may be that it would be helpful to address those issues at the next hearing, because I don't think you've had much time to see the fire department's feedback. We'll talk about this, during your application. If you want to see that feedback, I can give you a copy right now so you can talk while the other applicants are up.
Sorry, I've spoken to them on the phone, so.
Okay. Okay, so I just want to try to be as efficient as we can, given that we are causing a problem for you, for which we apologize. So are there any conflicts of interest or ex parte communications? I do not believe it's a conflict of interest, but I did work with Mr. Chadwick for more than 5 years, more than 4 years, and consider him a friend. However, I think that he knows that I would deny his application despite my liking him personally. Sorry, Evan.
Understood.
If it was warranted.
If it was warranted, yes. No, nor do I have any personal envy for him. And so I don't feel that that's a conflict of interest. And we have in the past done some work for Mr. Johnson, but that's concluded, that's not continuing at the moment. And so I likewise believe that there's no conflict of interest with respect to the Delta-related application, but I want to disclose those so that they're on the record, so that if anybody here has a problem with that, now's the time to raise the issue. I don't see anybody out there with one. Does anybody on the board have anything to disclose or ex parte communications?
Nope.
And, the application you had a conflict with is not the one that was continued from last time. You had a conflict
Yeah.
last hearing.
Yeah, but that was
It's
it.
not this. Okay. So then the first application today is application 2018-27. Mr. Chadwick, have you done this before?
Not in front of this board.
Okay, so if you sit at that table, believe it or not, this is widely viewed on BCTV. And if you could just try to speak into that microphone, it doesn't amplify you, but if you're not speaking into the microphone, they can't hear what you're saying.
Okay, thank you.
So if you could just tell us the basics of your project.
So the basics of our project are mostly specified in the site plan that was prepared by Monroe Winokur, submitted with our application. 440 Canal Street has for a very long time been a single-family residence. It's right in between Lotus Graphics and Brunel Construction, right in kind of the main commercial thoroughfare on Canal Street. Our intention is to modify the single family, which is a 2-story residence, to convert it into an apartment upstairs, a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom apartment, and then downstairs there will be commercial space for a hair salon, which will be run by my wife, Dina Chadwick, who's not here. As the site plan states, we will be adding some asphalt paving to the back, for 10 parking spaces. There will be drainage that goes to a dry well and a rain garden in the back behind the garage. And then there will be a handicap ramp along I guess that would be the west side of the building that will allow handicapped individuals to access the commercial space via the front porch. And that will also be the major entrance for all patrons of the hair salon. There will be 2 separate doors, one for the hair salon and then one for the apartment upstairs.
So you turned one hair salon into a residence, and now you're turning a residence into a hair salon.
There we go.
A decade later. Bike parking is going to be on the front porch?
Yes.
Okay. What is the entrance situation going to be for the apartment versus the business?
So they will both access through the front porch, but there will be there will be a framed-in interior that will block off the one apartment. It'll go upstairs, and there'll be a little hallway, a coat room there. And so they will have their own separate private entrance, and then there will be a separate door, probably about 10 feet farther west, that will be solely for the salon entrance.
Do you know where the trash is going to go?
The trash, there is a covered porch in the back of the building, and there is ample space to put garbage disposals that are covered, and the tenant will utilize town pickup, and then the commercial will have to deal with their waste individually.
How did you pick 11 parking spaces as the number?
Is that 11? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Well, let me ask it a different way. How did you pick the number of parking spaces, whatever it is?
So the plan is to have 4 employees working at the commercial space at any time. So that would be, 4 vehicles based on our, research of the traffic that goes through customarily. There will be about 1 customer per employee. So that adds up to about 8, plus the tenant who will have their own parking spot designated, and plus a couple extra overflow parking spaces.
There's a requirement for a fence separating this from the residential property that abuts it, to the south, I think. I assume that's not in the plan as it is now, is that right?
The south, are we talking about the Red Clover Commons? Do I have a fence back there?
Look at this. That's Lotus, isn't it? So that would be south. Oh, wait. Yeah, so that's south. That's the Walgreens.
See, that's fair.
That's the pizza.
What's
That's
the, is it a residential on the north?
I think it's your north.
Okay. I'm sorry.
So if you were looking at the property from Canal Street, would there be a residence to the left?
So if you're looking at it, well, it is a mixed commercial. It is Brunel Construction, I believe, is in the back, and then there is, I believe, an apartment in the front. So that, and then I believe the next, there's another residence that's another building over, and then you have the now defunct gas station even farther. I believe that's east of Canal Street.
Remind me, is Brunel in the apartment, is that one big building?
I believe it's 2 separate buildings.
Brunel's not in like a long thing that goes off the.
No, it may be, I can't recall off the top of my head whether it is 2
On
different.
this map, there's 2 structures. See?
This,
Oh, that's,
Yeah.
so this is Walgreens.
I've been in this building before,
This is,
you know, when it was a private
this is
residence.
Walgreens. This is.
Used to be an old sign shop for a very long time.
Okay.
So that fencing requirement only applies to residential properties? So if it's a mixed-use property with commercial?
Yeah, it sounds to me like it's a non-issue. What is the lighting fixture going to be?
So we will do timed lights in the back, so if you look at the garage, the plan is to do a motion detected or a timed light for the night hours to provide, a light for people to walk to and from their cars to get to the business. We'll also be doing some form of LED light on the corner of the 2-story structure close to the handicap ramp.
Okay, but exactly what type of fixture you haven't picked out yet?
I have my electrician who will be picking that out, but we have
Not a big deal, we
Yeah.
would just say
Yeah.
get administrative approval
Yeah.
of whatever you pick out if you
Yeah.
don't know now.
Yeah, that'll be done.
Okay. And then, did you see the email back and forth between Mr. Whitaker and Mr. Pan?
I did.
Okay, and so I think what Mr. Whitaker was proposing is to just have a revised plan submitted to the administrator that is conforming with the town ordinance. You're fine with that?
Yes.
That's all my questions. Others on the board?
I was curious about the sidewalk frontage here, in terms of just, I know that sidewalk gets utilized a lot by high school students. And so I was just curious if there are any concerns, whether it be from you, Mr. Chadwick, or Brian, do we have any concerns about, I remember we had a hearing recently on, was it Frost Street, and there were some residents who talked about not having a good view. So I'm just trying to picture, is there any concerns about cars coming in or leaving this entrance, and will they be able to see clearly the sidewalk, the way the shrubs are placed? And yeah, I'd hate to say if there was a requirement to put in shrubs and then, you know what I mean, it would cause a problem later.
It's a low species.
Okay.
And I think,
So you feel pretty confident that the entrance as it exists now is pretty clear for people entering and exiting with the sidewalk?
Yes, you can see, before you even get to the sidewalk area, I mean, you can see for 20, 30 feet in front, and then when you look at both sides, it's very clear. There's nothing except a tree in the front of a maple tree that it doesn't obstruct the view at all.
So I would then ask if we're going to be improving a commercial structure, are there any requirements where the property owner would have to actually paint their driveway so that there would be a clear demarcation that the sidewalk crosses in front? You know what I mean? Because it's asphalt, it goes from roughly concrete to asphalt to concrete. If there's any requirements to paint essentially a crosswalk, or is that not a requirement?
Well, generally, the concrete sidewalk continues across the base of the driveway.
Is that the case with this?
The sidewalk, yes, I mean, it's
Okay,
definitely,
so it is,
definitely demarked as a sidewalk
Okay.
even across the.
that's the only thing that I think came to my mind, just, you know.
This is actually a sidewalk.
Other members of the board?
Well, it's from this drawing, it doesn't appear that there's actual sidewalk. I'm just wondering if the sidewalk ends and it's just simply asphalt.
Right.
That asphalt's continuous with the Canal Street.
It's like a-
Maybe if you put the thing up on the board and point out stuff, it would be easier to see. 'Cause I have no idea what you're referring to.
I'm referring to the.
I know you're referring to,
Oh,
but
I
I'm
think-
looking
so,
at this, there's no
Here's a
sidewalk.
blown up portion, so I believe what Ian is stating is this sidewalk right here. It looks like it just kind of stops, and then
Yeah.
there's a cut in, and then it continues on that way.
Right,
So, as far as I can recall, there is definitely, it's obviously cut back
Okay.
to allow cars to enter in there without, hitting
Yeah.
a bump, but it is definitely noted as a crosswalk. And that goes outside of obviously my property line. So when you come up through here, you can very clearly see for a long distance both ways if there are any pedestrians on both sides before you even get to the intersection.
And the property just, I consider it south on Canal Street, but the property just south of you on Canal Street is the Lotus.
Lotus
Graphics.
Graphics, yes.
And I think their setup is the sidewalk is their parking lot's actually cut off by a fence, so. Again, it's just, that would be my only concern. Is that the building? Scroll there, can we show Kev? He's got a street view here.
You're right, the sidewalk continues,
Yeah.
at least on Google's little vehicle.
And it's not been changed since the last Google
So
vehicle.
there's, you know, by distorted, but you can see.
so this is considered, this is gonna be a natural drive. Is that what this is?
Well, it already is a driveway.
You're not changing
So
any
it's
of
a
the
private
pavement.
driveway.
No.
You don't intend to change the curbing.
It's
No.
a private drive, but it's called what?
Do you see, okay, here.
No, I walked up there and it's.
So there's
it-
Lotus.
And it's clear, the sidewalk continues.
Yeah.
It's
Just,
very clear.
No, I can see that from the street view. Thank you.
just for the record, since this is in evidence, we've observed the photograph that shows that the concrete sidewalk continues like a crosswalk. There's a little bit of asphalt at the bottom of it. It looks like when they paved the road, they kind of went a little bit wide to make everything line up, and that's what the board just reviewed. Other questions? Any members of the public who wish to speak to this application? So my thought is that we move to approve application 2018-17 with a waiver for the separate entrance requirement to the extent anyone might say that these are not separate entrances. With a requirement that the applicant get administrative approval for the proposed light fixtures, the outside lighting fixtures, and administrative approval for the rain garden or any other stormwater relief plan.
What about the thing from the fire department? You said construction permit application?
Oh, that's the Delta campus.
No.
So she's right, she's right.
No,
Oh, there is?
there.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And to submit a construction permit application to the Division of Fire Safety and receive a permit from
Yeah,
them.
we've already met with Mr. Johnson once, so that'll be done.
Oh, I didn't, it's all on the same sheet.
Anybody want to give me so moved?
Second.
So moved, second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 6-0.
Thank you.
Have a nice
Have a good day, guys.
Okay. The next application is 2018-55, Dr. Margaret Nicholas for George Malou. Am I pronouncing that right? I think we were.
Nicholas.
Nicholas, sorry.
No, it's good.
So folks, I know that you've been before us before.
Actually, we have not. We were here last.
They chose to wait for a larger board.
Sorry, I know I've read your application before. Do you want to tell us a little more about the plan? Now we're on the record.
Yeah, so I'd just like to say good evening to everybody. I'm George Malou, this is Dr. Margaret Nicholas. We both live at 147 Orchard Street in Brattleboro, and we're looking to open a home office. And I will let Dr. Margaret take the floor and explain what that means and entails. And we invite any questions. Thank you.
So, we were here last month, and you folks have all read our application. I'm a naturopathic doctor, and I specialize in Lyme disease. I've been in clinical practice for over 10 years in the state of New Hampshire. I've also held a medical license in the state of Vermont for several years, not because I've actually worked in Vermont, but because I have lots of clients and because of continuity of care and wanting to be able to prescribe for my clients, I've always maintained a medical license for several years in the state of Vermont. My main clinical practice, as I stated, is in Nashua, New Hampshire, and I travel back and forth, amazingly enough, most of the week. Typically, I see clients 3 to 4 days a week in Nashua, and George and I, got the property here on 147 Orchard Street about a year ago, and we decided that we really would like to have a home office. This would be just a by appointment only private practice. My practice currently in New Hampshire is the same. I'm one doctor in my clinical practice, so I can only see one person at a time. And due to the nature of my practice and the complexity of my patient care, this is really what my practice is. I typically see patients for 1 hour to 1.5 to 2 hours, depending on the complexity. And so it's a very unique and specialized practice in that it's not a walk-in type of somebody can come off the street and, seek acute care in any capacity. These are established clients of mine that are coming to me for a specific reason because I'm a specialist in my field. So the nature of my practice would be very similar in lots of ways. I actually have a lot of clients in Vermont currently that see me in New Hampshire. And so because I live here, my daughter actually goes to the Putney School, and because I live here, it just made a lot of sense for me to consider having an additional office for some of my private clients so that they can come and see me in a professional office.
It's pretty written. I don't have any questions.
So your office will be in the carriage house?
Yes. So when you actually pull in, I don't know if you've ever been up to our property, but when you pull in the driveway, there's, it's a circular driveway and there's 3 doors. It's a pretty substantial driveway, like right when you pull in, there's quite a bit of parking area, but then there's a big garage off to the left of the carriage house. That's another extended parking area, but I'm not expecting any more than 1 client at a time, so they would be parking most likely like just within that circular area. And so we have our main door, and then we have a middle door, and then we have the door to our carriage house, which is where I would be entertaining clients.
So it's a private entrance as well as the driveway's long enough that when you come up, you're out of view of the street, so wouldn't be an issue with that.
We had that hearing of that meeting before I joined the board. There was a fellow, we had to deny the application for home business because it turned out he'd moved out of there.
Yeah?
So we just want to maybe let people know the warning that the home business requires that the person live at the residence.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
So. it was just
I
a
don't
bit-
know if you know our property, but it's like, it's not a property that you can easily move out of in the sense of, you know.
It was a very unique situation that
Sure.
the chair made a point of, and so it sort of stuck in my memory. I hadn't joined the board yet.
that was an interesting case.
Yeah, it was an interesting case. So it's just a reminder, you know?
Sure, absolutely.
Anything else?
So
No, sir.
your memo says something about signage.
Yeah, actually, the only signage we're really interested, we don't really want to advertise anything. We just really want to put a street sign. I actually talked to Brian about this. Like many houses, there's a cluster of mailboxes. And one of the things that people have had a challenge with is finding our house. So we just want to put a 147 Orchard on our gate, which I think does not have to go before the zoning board. I'm not sure, but I don't want to have a sign at this point. Again, we don't really feel the need for that. We just really want to have the address, put on the gate in a formal way, so that's kind of separated from the other mailboxes, because for whatever reason, every single time somebody comes to our house, they can't find our house.
Get the phone call.
Generally, you wouldn't need to do that. If you wanted to be kind of creative and have like a 30 by 30 foot sign with the house number, then that probably.
Yeah, no, we're not
Sure,
really
get those
interested in
laws.
that, yeah.
As a matter of right, I think you have 4 by 6 to work with.
Okay,
And
great.
we can't tell you what to do with that. It's not illuminated, correct?
Yeah, this is definitely not gonna be illuminated. In fact, I can tell you, we're actually thinking of getting a sign, like a bronze sign, that just is really consistent with the nature of the property. It says 147 Orchard Street. And we might put the name of the Chantry on it, because that's the original name of the house.
Sure. Under our ordinances as they're presently written, you can make it ugly. There's nothing we can do about it. I'm sure your neighbors
We
won't
promise
like
we
it,
won't
but-
make it ugly.
But it's very dimensional.
Sure.
So as long as it's within those dimensions, that'll be written into the permit, and then the rest is left to you.
Okay.
There's one on Western Avenue, actually, a therapy practice, where you'll see a very long, thin
Yes.
sign that you can't read, and that's a consequence of the very dimensional ordinance.
Okay, gotcha, okay.
You might not want to do that, but, anybody else with any questions? Any members of the public wish to speak to this application? Hearing none, let's have a motion to approve application 2018-55.
So move.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes 6-0. Very sorry for the delay.
Oh, no problem.
Nice.
I actually have one quick question. Are we allowed to take the permit sign down?
I don't actually know how it works.
Yeah, you can take it down now, and then when a permit is actually issued, or actually when the signed decision is issued, then you'll have to post a second poster.
Oh, okay. So we do have to go ahead to get, I want to understand just about the sign. We have to come,
You have to put it back up so that they know that they have the right to appeal the permit that we granted you. Is that right?
Yeah, so you can take down the current poster. James will sign off on the decision to formalize the vote tonight. I'll send that out to you with a new poster, and that will note the date when it can be appealed, which is 30 days out. At the end of that 30 days, you can remove that poster as well.
okay, great. But what does that have to do with any signage like that? Because I know that there's another application if you do want to have an illuminated sign, but do we have to go, in front of the board again to have just a 147 Orchard Street?
That would just, with the number alone, that's exempt from any permit requirements, so you
great.
need nothing. Otherwise, you would get administrative approval from me for signs.
Okay, good.
Which means you don't need to come back to us.
Okay, great.
Just call Brian.
Okay, great.
No, I mean, it's-
Thank you so much.
Some people aren't familiar with it.
Thank you.
Yeah, have a nice night.
Have a great summer.
I just wonder how often you say that. Just call Brian.
Whenever I don't know what to do. This is pretty awesome. Okay, so the final application is 2018-86. If you guys want to take a second to talk amongst yourselves about what I said before, that's fine.
There you go.
Okay.
One chair over. Work.
Here's the,
Keep this municipal
Chair
center.
over.
I didn't know it.
board reacting.
Okay, so first of all, did I communicate clearly the problem? Do we all understand what's going on?
Could you repeat it, please?
We didn't warn this for Local Act 250.
Okay.
So, even though we do this all together, I suppose technically it's bifurcated and 2 warnings are necessary. And we did not warn one of the meetings. And so if we attempted to go forward and you had a butter who didn't like us, they would say, I didn't get warning at Act 250, Local Act 250, and they would have a very reasonable complaint because they have no opportunity to be here and to process them. Of course, that makes no sense because they would have been warned about this meeting tonight and they absolutely know that this, should know that this application is going forward. But
It just leaves it out there.
well, it creates technical problems where there shouldn't be any, and in any event, you still need to do the Local Act 250 permit meeting, so you're gonna need to come back before us for that, which is completely our fault and completely not your fault. But that's the situation. We're having a little bit of a personnel issue within the office here, we apologize. And so,
What does that entail as far as scheduling goes?
they come back in July, right?
July, and then we'll accelerate getting the decision out so it doesn't delay you.
So we're not,
What?
July.
July 8th, what is it?
Third Monday, it's always the third Monday, and
I believe it's 16.
What happened to the
Well,
calendar? Oh, there it
Yeah,
is.
it's the 16th.
July 16th.
We're not in a big rush.
I can't see that from here.
I guess so.
I mean, if you wanted, you could come back and do the whole thing at the next meeting.
Well, that in July, we're actually all gone.
Okay.
Separate vacations.
Yes.
The other thing that's possible is we could do all the testimony now, and you could simply send in correspondence that says nothing's changed, and you can send in correspondence that relates to this issue that the fire department raised, where they say the road is not wide enough. I don't know what your position is on that, but I assume you know that that's their position.
Yeah, that's not true, yeah.
So I mean, that's something we would have wanted more detail about anyway. We would have given you more time because it's short notice. And in my view, as long as you can say, that I'm saying this under oath, this is what we're gonna do, so that an applicant has the opportunity to see that on the record and respond to it on the record, and we can consider the various competing issues. I think that's the most efficient way to satisfy this. But you don't have to do what I'm suggesting. This is just my
Sounds
idea.
good.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we just go ahead and we'll have some representation,
Okay,
a meeting in the future.
right. If you give us all your testimony now, I see no reason why you have to be physically present here for the July meeting. The complication that could arise is if some abutter shows up in July and they say, hey, I've got this issue with the wildflowers in the wetland, and we've not considered the wildflowers in the wetland, then we're left in a situation where we've got to say, okay, we've got to ask to see what the applicants say about this because we don't have any testimony. But still, at least we'll have a shot to get it resolved in 2 meetings, and I think that's better than just saying, well, it's pushed back to us. Okay, so with that being said, could you tell us about your application 2018-86?
So I'll start. I'm Bob Johnson. I'm president of Omega Optical and founder of the Delta campus. Dave Gabriel and David McManus have worked with me for a number of years. This is a sort of an exciting step ahead in the development of the Delta campus. We're finally getting around to bringing in the residential dimension to the campus.
This is part of the original plan, right?
Yeah, the original Act 250 master plan had 100 bedroom sites, and that's in the full build out of the campus. In the phase 1, this cluster of houses in Lincoln Way, which is a little circular drive, was proposed, and we're finally getting to the point of applying to build that out. So the idea, we actually came before your board back some years ago, but then never went ahead with the project. It's been now reduced in count from 9 units to 5. And these are going to be roughly 1,000 square foot, energy efficient. The goal is to be a net zero house at a reasonable rent. So I'll sort of hand it off to David and Dave.
Yeah, so what we, you guys just introduce yourselves, progress, but also for people who are watching it for the record. Sorry.
My name's Dave McManus. I'm doing project planning and administration for Delta Campus Development. To my right is David Gabriel, and so David will be, is the official applicant who will be managing the project. So what we're following on Mr. Johnson's opening statement, we have looked at this lot 28 for some time across the way from a Mega Optical and see a strong opportunity there with the Mega Optical having roughly 100 employees and Commonwealth Yogurt having roughly 100 employees. That people need a place to live and find a convenient and affordable way to get to work. We have done in the past something similar down the hill on Paul's Road, which is actually in Guilford. At the bottom of Paul's Road, a house that the design of which we're working with a designer called First Day Cottage. He's based in Walpole, New Hampshire. We constructed a First Day Cottage down in this area of Guilford on Paul's Road back in 2008. So we're going to take a version of that and build a couple of these 5-unit cluster as First Day cottages. They'll be single-story, energy efficient, to code. We'll likely be installing a heat pump system that will take care of the domestic hot water and heat for the building. Just under 1,000 square feet, 2-bedroom, maybe 2.5, but most likely 2-bedroom. And then on the northeast side of the lot, you'll see there's same shapes, the T shape, but actually we are building, what we'll probably build in those locations is another house that we designed and built down at the bottom of Paul's Road, which we call the Winchester House, which is our own design. It's roughly 1,200 square feet, double 2-story. Since it's back into the hill there, we can build a basement and have it be a 2-story with a full basement on those units. I think that's pretty much of a summary. They're all roughly the same footprint, roughly the same idea to make it affordable, to make it efficient, energy efficient, and again, a convenient place to live close to potentially where you work. With that, I would pass it to David because he can talk more about the actual construction, some of the work that we need to do in grading that Brian has brought to our attention. Also, the conversation he had with the fire chief. So I'll yield to David.
So where would you like me to start, with the fire chief or?
You guys, well, does everybody on the board know what I'm talking about, first of all?
Is it this? Is it this?
It's, yeah, so I'll explain it for the record in case anybody at home is wondering what we're talking about. So your proposal was for a 14-foot wide roadway.
A lane, yes.
Sorry?
We call it a lane.
Lane, and the fire department submitted some feedback and said if it's going to be a 14-foot lane, there ought to be a 6-foot reinforced shoulder, or presumably you could also widen the road.
Correct.
So that's the information that we have at the moment, so go ahead.
So I talked with Mike Bacazzi on the phone the other day on my way back, and basically we settled on expanding the hard shoulder of it. We can leave it grassed in. We do need to maintain it during the winter time so they can pass a fire truck and the ambulance at the same time. But keeping a nice narrow, small road that would be our travel lane, but availability for the fire truck to sit on the side, gain access to the houses.
So I just want this to be described in a way that we can put it in the permit. How would you describe what you've agreed to?
Excuse me, a gravelled in hard surface to the edge of the road as a shoulder,
At what width?
an extra 6 feet.
Okay. So gravelled in hard shoulder,
Yep.
6 foot width.
Yep. Expanding our full hard surface to 20 feet.
Okay, and you propose this because he says it's okay?
Yep. And he can put it in writing for you if you'd like.
That's right, you're on oath.
Yep.
There's a mention here of a cul-de-sac or hammerhead being installed.
We
At
talked
the end.
about, yes, we talked about the hammerhead. He had recommended it originally because we used to have the Inspire School at the end of that road, and he was worried about children. But now it's just an R&D building. We have about 4 cars parked over there, so there's plenty of room for a fire truck to go through, emergency personnel. So he wrote that one off, but I still would like to give him availability to turn his truck around should there be a bottleneck of equipment up in that area, which will be on the right-hand side. The new residence is called the Holby property, which we are just now starting to build. So I'll just make that entrance to that driveway nice and wide, so he can turn around.
Is this on the drawing, it's written there, widen existing drive to accommodate fire truck turnaround? Is that what we're referring to?
I think widening the existing driveway is the entire lane going up and around. The one top right-hand corner there, which would be to the east of Lincoln Way, that is the new driveway that he's actually never even seen before. But I told him about that in our chit chats, and he said that would be a nice spot to turn around if he had to.
So is this what used to be
That,
the Aspire School?
no, the Inspire School is all the way around.
Is it on this map?
Doesn't show us.
Okay, that's fine.
No, the Inspire School would be down here
Okay.
on this side, but this is the new section here for a turnaround in case there is a bottleneck of vehicles and somebody can't get through.
So does this continue? I'm seeing a
Yes, it
loop.
does. It continues through, the Inspire School or the R&D building is here now, you
Okay.
wrap back around, you
Okay.
get up on Dillon North, and you go
Okay.
right back out.
I see.
So it's a full loop.
It is a.
Yep.
I ask this really more out of curiosity than anything else. What is SurePack?
SurePack
Is it the same as SurePack?
yes, yeah.
Okay. Is that just how SurePack is spelled and I never knew that? Okay, that's fine.
Where's that reference?
What's the correct spelling of SurePack?
Well, it's spelled on here, CER-PAK,
Oh.
and I always thought it was just.
I always
Sure-
thought it was UR, to be honest.
Yeah, I do.
SUR.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
thought-
that's what I thought.
Okay. Maybe it's just a typo. I think it was like some new high-tech version of SurePack.
No.
I was curious about it.
Crushed aggregate down to dust.
Right, that I get. So I understand there you're gonna have walkways made from that, and they're gonna be pervious.
Yep.
And that there's gonna be some lighting, but the lighting plan is not finalized at this time?
Yep.
Okay, but you're content to just submit something for administrative approval if that's a condition?
Yeah, we're proposing, low LED shaded lighting that is run on motion sensor. So very, very low impact on the light. That's something we've always strived for on the campus.
Great.
What I would bring up is my sort of hobby horse, which is, if people are aware of color temperature and the idea of, again, I only recommend it, I don't think I'm in a position to, enforce it, but 2700K tends to be very similar to the tungsten of old. It's a much more warm light.
Yep.
And so I would just bring that up as part of your design. You may choose to go with a more warm light, and it may be
Definitely.
something that residents may like. I wanted to ask a question, I guess, which is somewhat related to the width of the lane.
Mhm.
From this plan, it appears that the two properties on the left-hand side, it appears that they have some parking, and to me, it's human nature thinking that the 3 that don't have parking, and are people gonna just park on the road?
Well, the parking is on the right-hand side.
again, I would just say with human nature, is I'm wondering if somebody who lives at the top or is renting at the top place, if, I'm just trying to anticipate future problems.
Sure.
That if there were an emergency, that emergency vehicles may be dealing with
Parked cars.
people who are renting or friends who are visiting who park. And I'm just curious as if, again, I don't know if it's our purview, but
Yeah.
could we,
That is our purview.
well, I would highly recommend that each property have at least one spot. I can foresee, and again, I'm bringing this up because I can just foresee human nature, that, that people will probably, or even if friends are dropping by, will probably want to park right up
Yeah.
next to their property, so.
I think one step would be to post signs, as we do around the campus, to keep, lanes open for fire trucks. We can watch over that ourselves too, because we are always there, of course.
I happened to visit a place on Putney Road, and I was just going in for a minute, so of
Yeah.
course I parked right where it said no parking, and it might have given me a small thrill
Yeah.
because it was transgressive, but,
I'm gonna take it.
Just
well, it was a private lot,
as
so.
an addendum, I think it would be a pretty radical design change to ask for something like that. I understand the concern, but that'd be a huge design change. And I think that they've got the part, it'll be part of the tenant agreement with them, I would think, that they use the parking
Yeah.
spots. So I understand the concern for that, but I suspect that they'll give trouble to folks who.
I simply bring it up because when I looked at the plans, that was the one thing that jumped out at me. And again, knowing human nature, somebody may make a run to the store and they may park their car right on the side of the road or lane. They may bring their groceries in. They may say, oh, I'd like to have lunch, and they eat lunch, and then
They
they
sit
take a
down.
nap, and then 5 hours later, the car is still there. I don't know. I'm just
Totally understand.
bringing up
Yeah.
that
Absolutely.
as a concern that from the plans.
Is there gonna be any striking?
No striping, no.
You had said there's gonna be another building that you wanted to put up besides what, the 5?
There
What
is
would that
one
be?
actively, the Holby House, which is being relocated,
Where
which is
it
actually on lot 1A.
I think it's that top here. It's in the top right.
Oh, up here?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So that is actually not really connected to the
It's
5.
Separate lot.
It's, yeah, it's separate,
Okay,
but it's just
yeah.
in the same amount of time we're working
Okay.
on, so.
Is that where the cellar hole I saw being dug,
Yes,
going?
yep. Yeah, in the last week or week and a half here?
Yeah,
Yep.
I was out there over the last weekend.
Yes, yep.
Okay. So you're moving a house there?
Yes, the house that you witnessed sitting on the right-hand side,
Mhm.
that was the Holby House, which was Commonwealth Dairy had bought, it sat down below, and they were gonna tear it down, so we decided to relocate it, pick it up and bring it up, rather than lose the building. So,
Free house.
yeah.
Well, you just gotta move it.
Just move it.
Yes, just move it. Could we have a quick question about the energy efficiency?
Yes, I actually have a really quick question on that. Electric
These
vehicle
are
charging.
going to be, very efficient houses. I mean, the whole idea with the Delta campus is to explore ways of building energy efficient housing. So the goal is, net zero carbon impact. Initially, that may not be achieved, it may be just very efficient, but we plan on putting solar panels in this lower lot 1. And so those would be grid tied to provide the electricity for these efficient houses.
What I was wondering is if there would be some provision for charging electric vehicles in either of the park areas.
Definitely there will be. We have existing electric vehicle charging in all the existing Omega.
I was more of a curious question about heat pumps, which the technology has really come along recently, but I guess the kicker is if you get an extended cold snap, that, would there be something like a propane backup or a?
We're actually planning on using the Sandem units, which will be the probably one of the first applications in the United States, and they're using CO2 as the refrigerant. So the efficiency is maintained all the way down to minus
22.
Wow.
Here's some literature on it.
Yeah, what's the brand? I'm just fascinated.
SANDEN.
Thank you.
So they do a domestic hot water system, and they also do a whole house system, and it's an air-to-water system.
Pulling heat out of the air, putting it into water and then distributing.
Yeah.
Through a radiant system and
Okay.
floors and
Huh.
whatnot.
That's all my questions.
I have a question about the wetland that's below
Mhm.
this. Is that part of the Act 250 review? There's a wetland and you have a pond,
That's a separate law.
Yeah.
Right. It-
but you're gonna be building above it.
Above it.
Right, and we're required to be 50 feet from that law.
And we brought in, I believe, Rebecca from Act 250, who delineated everything and said, as long as you're out of here, you're fine. So,
You may as well talk about the stormwater runoff, too, and how you dealt with that.
that Stevens and Associates, Brad had put together a package for, and we'll just follow his path.
So in between all the little houses there, is that where you're going to put plantings?
In the middle area?
Yeah, you have all these spaces
Yeah.
in between the houses, so what's going to be in here?
We'll do some plantings, but in the center area, we're thinking of a common area, which we haven't quite figured out, but I'm thinking children, play area, something nice where people can, congregate, and picnic tables, that kind of.
So you have to work here to get one of these?
The one thing I always think to bring up is, since we're talking about new construction, and again, this is not to dictate what you're doing, but just to put an idea out there. It never occurs to me that when people put in parking lots, why they aren't just covering the parking lot, sticking solar panels on it, and then they won't have to plow the parking lot in the winter.
Well, that actually, lot one is what we're doing.
Is that really the
Yep,
plan?
yep.
Okay.
We
So-
have 2 big carports, I forget the exact length, 80 feet long with solar panels on top of them. And
Okay.
yeah, I'm right on board with you.
Thank you. It's just, it occurs to me whenever I see,
Yeah.
why wouldn't you just put
I know they
solar
did down in
panels
the
on
Harmony
the
parking lot and there was no panels on top. About the same thing.
Thank you for indulging me.
Of
Okay, there's no further questions here, I think. I'll note for the record, there are no members of the public who came to speak to this application. Brian, is there any reason we can't vote on the application despite the lack of Act 250 notification?
You can certainly vote on the site plan. I think it might be better to continue just in case anybody in addition shows up at the next hearing.
Well,
Yeah.
what I'll do is I'll note for the record that I would propose we move to approve the application with the requirement that there be adequate signage prohibiting on-street parking from areas where there's no on-street parking. The 6-foot width shoulder approved by Picosi, that there be electric vehicle charging in each of the parking areas, that the applicant submit a lighting plan for administrative approval.
Also, did you suggest to submit something in regard to the fire department?
That's what I
Yeah.
meant. If
Oh,
I
okay.
didn't say that clearly
They have
enough,
a fire
Sorry.
alarm system
Oh,
also.
yeah.
You
sorry.
saw that also, right?
But I mean, even if
I
they could
did
submit
notice
in
that.
writing, they don't have to come back to the
A
next
fire
meeting.
alarm pole box.
Yeah,
Yep.
radio transmitted signal
Mhm.
fire alarm box.
Is
Yeah,
there,
I think that's a good idea. Yeah.
is there some reason that's not feasible?
I wouldn't see why, no.
Okay. So on the radio transmitted signal fire alarm box. Brian, if you could just keep a note of that And what I'll do at the next meeting is have somebody make the motion, and we'll see if there's anybody here who wishes to speak during the discussion phase of it.
So you're essentially establishing the motion that then we will vote on in the next meeting.
I just don't want us to forget anything accidentally.
Yeah.
That's all.
So,
And since they're not gonna be here, I want them to hear what we're gonna do. Since
And Brian will write
you wanna
that up
say
and
something
share it
about
with you.
Say it now.
there's also a note that Steve Barrett
Mhm.
wanted each unit to have a water meter.
Okay.
And
It's
that
gonna be
they,
on town water?
It'll be on town water. We're gonna
Yeah.
bring it up through, yes.
Okay, well. Put that in the note for, as a condition then. That's funny, I've never heard that one.
Water meter on each house.
I'll chat with Steve.
We don't
on
need to
that.
get anything in writing with this conversation with the fire department doing.
No, I'm content, if somebody's gonna go under oath and say that the chief fire department said this, knowing that that can
Okay.
be very easily checked,
okay.
I'm content to believe them.
Mhm.
We also did get a letter from the superintendent of schools addressing the attendance.
Yeah, I saw that note. I
Okay.
mean, I think all of us know that the schools are just dying for there to be new kids in the
All right,
schools.
They need students.
Well, I appreciate your attending to the detail.
Yeah. We just don't know whether we need to go in front of their school board to make it formal.
No, I don't think so. I think we can take notice that any additional students that can go in the area schools are a great boon for the community and consistent with the town.
I videotape some of the school board meetings. It's usually a pro forma thing where they will have your thing. Have they already approved it?
It's a conditional letter, just, it's.
What usually happens is the superintendent brings it up during part of the meeting, and the board just makes a vote on it. I don't think you need to be present.
If you want to do it, that's fine. In my view, there are better uses of your time. I don't think any of us would give much credibility to somebody who came and said, wait a second, this project can't go forward because of the adverse impact on the town.
Too many children.
Okay.
So, okay. So that's the motion that I'm going to make when the hearing opens in July. If you wish for us to not go forward without you, send us something and we won't. But as far as I'm concerned, you've addressed everything that's been raised that's relevant to your permit. And if anybody writes into the planning department, can we please forward it to these guys so that they could try to submit a written response? And if you do that, you're gonna have to find a way to get it put under oath with a notary,
Mhm.
okay? Because
Well, with Mike, with the fire department?
no,
Oh, sorry.
you're here, you're under oath for
Oh,
that.
gotcha,
If someone says, wait a second, they're destroying this old spruce tree,
yeah.
and you wanna respond to that here, I need to have testimony.
Yep.
And so you're gonna have to write a statement, have a notary take your oath, and
Gotcha.
say, yeah, this is under oath. And I think under those circumstances, we don't need to interrupt your personal lives, and we can move ahead with the Act 250 meeting without you.
Excellent.
If it becomes too complicated, we'll just continue so that you guys can come back. But I'd like to have the chance of getting it moved forward quickly since we caused the delay.
Thanks.
Okay, well, thanks for your consideration, and we'll look for a positive July meeting.
Yes, and again, we apologize.
That sounds like a good project.
Thank you.
Okay, so do we have any administrative matters to discuss?
So the next meeting is scheduled for July 16th.
Okay.
And we need an alternate if anybody's watching on television.
That's right.
What's the difference between a regular and an alternate?
The new alternate's gonna get paid twice as much as we do.
You mean zero twice?
Yes. That is what
Have a good night.
No, they'll get more
Good night,
ice
guys.
cream.
See you later.
They'll get more ice cream.
I still haven't gotten my ice cream.
I'm sorry, I know. I keep on saying I'm
That's
sorry.
right, ice cream.
I move we adjourn.
And you'll email around regarding the boat cruise trip proposal.
Yeah, I think you guys should vote to continue the site plan to the July meeting.
Oh, yeah, so we'll move to continue the site plan 2018-86, the next meeting, motion.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes 6-0.
So what's this boat trip?
Do you want to adjourn?
Well, we're technically discussing board business, so we
Okay.
should do it on record.
So how does the boat trip work?
Well, the boat trip has never actually happened.
Oh, I see.
We tried to plan it last summer, but it did not happen, and I wanted to do it this summer. Traditionally, past chairs before me have taken the board out for a beer, and we have the rare privilege here of having a member of the board who has a working boat. And one of the problems has been none of the bars are open Monday night. And so we're stuck going like Arkham Bar, and while there's nothing wrong with Arkham Bar,
Duo's open on Monday.
well, okay, fine, but it's just, it's not quite,
Oh, I
it's not
see.
quite.
You want to get out on the
It's
water.
not quite everybody's seen, and so, and so I thought, we have a guy with a boat, we can bring beer on the boat perfectly
Okay.
legally. Let's just go on the boat.
And if we're there as a board and we just talk about our kids and we don't bring up
Can't
any
talk-
zoning
Yeah, we
things,
can't talk about applications, then we're violating open meeting law, but we can just
I'd be happy to hang out and not talk about zoning.
talk about how much the weather stinks or whatever it is people
Yeah.
talk about, I don't know. Okay, so, any other administrative matters?
Oh, the historic tour?
It's still pending. Our office is going through a reorganization, so the time demands are a little bit crazy right now.
Okay, motion to adjourn?
Second?
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?